So today, hunting carbine? Really? Hi, Neil McPherson, Wirksworth Gunroom. Now, not everything that I put on this channel is something we're just trying to sell out of the shop. Sometimes it might be something we've got in for some other reason, or in this case something we've already sold. But before it goes out, it's quite an interesting piece, so I thought we'd share it with you. So what we're talking about today is a Mosin Nagant. Now, this one's a bit different than many because not only is this the sniper model, but when we got it in, it was still in the wrappers, which, as you can see, it still partially is. So there's plenty of history on these all over the internet. I'm not going to repeat all of that, but I thought while we've got the firearm here, good opportunity to give you a brief description of it and show it as it came into us. So, time-honoured fashion, attempt to show that clear. It's a long way down there, isn't it? Yes, clear. So, the Mosin Nagant, this is the PU model, sniper model. This is essentially the model 9130, originally introduced 1891 as the name suggests, and then modernised, changed a bit in 1930. They did some changes. I think there were some changes around. Early ones had a hex bolt, although I don't think it was, like many things in this type of 20th century rifle, things always didn't always just change on a particular date. There would have been things phased in, because these were made in their millions. I mean, even the sniper models were made in vast numbers. Now this particular one dated 1943, so that actually turned out pretty much at the height of the Battle of Stalingrad, and it's got the scope on it. This is an original scope. Have been asked by people, oh, is it? Oh, it's a fake. Oh, it's a. Well, no, it isn't. It's actually stamped up by the the Russian state arsenals, and dated 2012. So it's got new electropencil or laser etching on it to state that it's withdrawn from service. And so, no, this is not one that's been hacked together by some gun plumber who had some bits knocking around. This is the genuine article. So first of all, let's just take a look at it in terms of it just being a rifle. Get this fastened up. Now, general, fairly typical bolt action rifle. So we've got a full length stock in this case. You can get a look at part of that there. It's a 30-inch barrel, which is pretty long, and if you consider that most of the major powers had gone to a shorter rifle by even the First World War, or certainly during the First World War, and yet this, and it's the sniper model, is on a 30-inch barrel, and it's a great long bit of kit. And they've not made a lot of changes to really convert it as a sniper rifle, and part of that I think will reflect Soviet doctrine, in that they weren't really thinking of people as snipers perhaps in the modern sense. It was more that if you were a good shot, they'd put a scope on your rifle and then you carried on. So it's quite short stocked. And if I look at that, I don't know, maybe it doesn't come up all that short, but it's quite narrow here. If I bring that up into my shoulder, it does all feel very close. I can't bring the bolt back without it hitting my face. The bolt, very simple to remove. Pull the trigger, rather like you'd get on many rimfire rifles or something much cheaper. There's no catch to do that, and you can see the bolt here. Hopefully you can just get in there. There's two lugs up the front, an emergency lug if you like, and the bolt handler's been turned down. Now that is the difference between this and the ordinary 9130, which has a completely straight bolt which you operate right over the top. In this case, of course, the scope would get in the way. It has a separate, a pullable, if you like, cocking piece, which means that once it's in the rifle, you can actually separately cock it. Whether that was used doctrinally, I can't tell you the answer to that, but I'm sure it's somewhere on the internet. So, other than that, full stock, straight through the grip there, and it's a shallow stock. The this is an Eastern European or a Russian type look. I think if you look at certain rifles, some of the CZ family, the stock profile is very similar to that, I think. Looking at the sling attachments, what else can we call them? On the pre-war models, this has a nice little copper or brass, probably brass, slip all round it, and they've reduced it to go, well, what's the bare minimum we can do? The bare minimum is, well, we'll just have a little slip just to protect it a bit. We've got 5-round magazine, and it's got a push button arrangement so that you can drop the rounds, as you can see there. Pull that back up. Other than that, moving on forwards, we've got fairly typical rear sight of the period. Now I believe that on the early 1891 models, these weren't in meters. They were in a broadly comparable Russian unit of measure, which the name of which escapes me completely. I'll maybe put it in the notes. But by this stage they were marked out in meters, and that is the fairly typical sliding scale. And you can see it goes out to 2,000 meters. So good luck with that. But area fire still quite plausible and effective. And the cartridge for this, the 7.62 by 54R, R for rimmed, not for Russian, is a really potent cartridge. It's practically identical to 303 British. It fires, I think it was typical loading by this stage was a 180 grain bullet, and comparable with 174 grain of the 303 British. It's a rimmed cartridge, it's a long item, still in service today, used in medium machine guns and conflicts all over the world, and also used in the Dragunov sniper rifle, semi-auto one. So yeah, and so yeah, you could actually expect to reach out to those sort of distances. Moving forward, we've got fairly common type of post foresight. There's some adjustment on it. You can see you can get a tool into the top to, there's a little hole there. You've got a cleaning rod, screws in, slides out. I'm not going to bother with that anymore. This sort of band and clip arrangement is quite common on rifles of the 1890s, perhaps more so than later on. So the next item to have a look at is this scope. Now, on these, loads of people will tell you loads of stuff about whether they're real or whether they're fake, and I'm sure in the comments below here there'll be any amount of it. I'm not going to go into the details because it's tedious, but what we can see in this case is that the rifle has its serial number. The serial number has then been electro-penciled onto the mount, and the scope serial number has been electro-penciled onto the mount, and the scope serial number appears on the scope. Now, some people will tell you that the scope number was always stamped onto the barrel. Well, it's not stamped onto the barrel on this one, and this came out of the Russian state arsenals, so that clearly isn't always the case. It doesn't mean that it's been bobbered. In this case, this looks as though it's had a number ground off it, but that's because it's been factory reconditioned in the Soviet state arsenals, so that would actually make sense. As I say, it's originally dated 1943, and it's an Ishevsk, and it's been sent out again. So it's manufactured by Ishevsk. However, when it's been not refurbished but repackaged really, and there's marks on these that looks as though they've been stacked in pallets. You can imagine them being stacked like firewood. This is probably how they stored them, somewhere dry and cold, salt mine maybe, who knows. But although it was manufactured by Ishevsk, these are the contract to take these out of wartime reserve and presumably look over them. The proof marks they've got, yeah, I guess they've been reproofed. They must have been reproofed, CRP proof, and then dated with when they come out. That's been done by Tula, so it's gone through both there. looking at the, you can see, oh, so the scope. Now, key thing with the scope on these that's different, rather different than the later ones, and also different from a lot of repro stuff that's apparently out there. It's even got a bit of paper on the lenses. Is that the optics are clear on these. Now this is going to be really difficult to demonstrate, but I'll give it a go. Oh dear, can we get that Hun? Oh no, we can't quite line that up. Perfect thing to sort of aim a Russian sniper rifle at, really. But yeah, the optics are clear, they're uncoated. Now, apparently some repro ones are coated, and if you were going to get something made in the Far East nowadays as a replica, it'll certainly have coated optics, because although that's more work, they're going to be more common, so there's going to be more of them about. The scope has quite a nice little range drum on the top of it. Probably easiest if I show it side on rather than you see, but you can see the ranges there. Now that goes up to, let's take a look, goes up to 1,300 metres. That's a long shot with, you know, that really is probably the effective range on an individual target for this type of rifle, and you know, then pushing it a little bit or quite a lot even, but plausible. You could certainly expect to be shooting at a building or a vehicle or something like that at that sort of range with one of these that's in good fettle, and there's no reason to think that they wouldn't have been the best of the bunch. There must have been some degree of selection. Now the mount is removed with this thumb wheel, so all you need to do, undo this, and that's just got a little cone on the end, and then you can take the scope off. So maybe we can now get the Hun. Can we get the Hun? No, we can't get the Hun. But in terms of the reticle, yeah, you've got a post and a crossbar. I'll try and find an image of that to put up, but if not, just Google it. You know, it'll be a standard item. Some degree of pre-elevation adjustment, which you can see here. So you've got a little screw each side, so you can adjust that. In terms of windage, not so obvious. But you've got this quick detach mount. Stick it in your pocket while you're crawling through the sewer or whatever you're doing in Stalingrad. Not a sort of place you'd want to be. Trigger. Not bad really. It's quite heavy. It's a, give it another go. It kind of is a single stage. It's a longish single stage, which is a bit odd if you're used to two-stage triggers on military rifle, which I am, you know, the Enfields and so on. But quite usable. And in the hand weight, not that bad. I'm sure, you know, some things are lighter. I haven't put it on the scales. Ought to bring a set in. So that gives you the general idea. Now, interestingly, how did it come to be sent over here? Hunting carbine, as we see. Now, just save some of that package. Yeah, so here we are again, hunting carbine, and it is badged up 9130. Interestingly, the box also has labels that it could have been a Model SVD or a 40 or a 41. So they're sending these out. Hunting carbine, well, it's a sniper rifle, but I guess from the Russian export perspective, they thought that hunting carbine was perhaps politically more acceptable. I'm sure there must have been some of that sort of thinking going on. Now we've had a couple of these come through the shop. As I say, this one's sold, so sorry about that. To the best of my knowledge, there's nothing coming out now. There's trade embargoes on Russia, and there's the Ukraine war is still going on. So there's none of that coming out at the moment, but you never know. I mean, if you're interested in this sort of thing, do contact us. Stuff does come in from time to time. We've left some pictures of a previous one that we have sold up on the website because, you know, I think it's of interest to people to be able to see some real world examples if they're considering one themselves. So lucky gentleman from North Yorkshire is coming to pick this up later today, so I just thought we'll do a quick video and give you a quick look at it, something that you're not going to see every day. And much as we've enjoyed having it in the shop, I'm going to have to say goodbye to it. So, goodbye to the 9130 PU sniper rifle, and goodbye from me. Thanks for watching.